Chosen one, let your desire be seen as what it truly is, a flame with a conscience, a warmth that remembers its vow. Long before you speak, your wanting is already in the room, and the room reads it the way a forest reads the weather. Some winds arrive wild and take what they can. Other winds arrive purposeful and deliver rain. You have sworn your heat to the second kind. You have learned to hold fire the way a keeper holds a lantern. Light forward, glass clean, handle steady, so that traveling becomes possible for everyone near you. She senses this, not in the mind's quick grammar, but in the body's older lexicon. Her pulse, trained by years to measure risk, discovers a steady metronome beneath your presence. The metronome does not command. It keeps time. Keeping time is how walls begin to forget why they were built. Purity is not a costume you wear over appetite. Purity is the architecture inside appetite. You built that architecture in silent hours, where applause had no map to find you. You studied your motives until their disguises stopped being convincing even to you. You let your hunger stand in front of truth, and you watched which pieces still earned daylight. The rest you thanked and buried. This is why your wanting does not arrive with invoices. It arrives with provisions. It does not demand to be fed. It comes bearing bread. The oldest parts of her, the parts that believed they would always have to pay to be near a man's light, feel the economy change in your company. What once cost fragments of self now costs nothing but breath. When cost dissolves, guards rest. When guards rest, beauty walks out of hiding wearing its original face. Do not confuse intensity with purity. Intensity can be the theater of a starving heart. Purity is the diet of a disciplined one. Your fire does not race ahead of comprehension or make a spectacle to certify it as real. It moves with the slow brilliance of a hearth, the kind that bakes, cures, keeps, invites. You have practiced the politics of temperature, how to be warm enough that truth thaws and firm enough that shape remains. A room that knows it will not be melted into compliance can stop bracing. Bracing looks like strength until trust appears. Then it looks like fatigue. You have chosen to carry the kind of heat that makes trust practical. Your gaze teaches your hands how to behave. Eyes that collect turn touch into a transaction. Eyes that bless turn touch into continuity. When you look at her, you are not tallying worth for later bargaining. You are witnessing without annexing, a priest at a doorway, not a merchant in a market. She feels the difference before a single phrase arrives. The difference is oxygen. Under oxygen, rooms get larger. Under oxygen, the voice finds a lower key that does not tremble to be heard. In that key, she tries words she had kept in the attic. She tries silences she had once been punished for. Your desire, seeing this, kneels gladly. It is a student of her unguardedness. It vows to be the kind of light that doesn't bleach, the kind that lets colors deepen into themselves. You have learned the unglamorous magic of pace. Lust rushes because it does not trust tomorrow. Purity paces because it is already married to tomorrow. You walk at the speed of comprehension, and you make room for consent to be a celebration rather than a test. Consent hears your footsteps and recognizes choreography instead of choreography's counterfeit. When she pauses, you do not pressure stillness to prove it is alive by moving. When she moves, you do not shackle motion with a lecture on caution. You are not a policeman for tenderness. You are its town planner. You lay paths that know where feet prefer to go, and you keep those paths swept of debris of your ego. This too, you are honest about your wanting. Dishonesty makes walls taller. Honesty gives them doors. You do not launder desire into safe-sounding synonyms to look polite. You speak plainly at a human volume with a human face. Plainness is not poverty. It is wealth salted against rot. Plainness lets her intuition verify your words against your breath, your tone, your history, your exits. Plainness puts everything on one currency, so no part of her must run back and forth between exchange counters, trying to keep value from being stolen by clever rates. When valuation grows simple, fear grows tired. When fear grows tired, the drawbridge lowers itself. Your purity is not innocence, it is mastery. Innocence does not know its power. Mastery knows and chooses how to use it. You have felt what happens when attention is turned into a net. You have heard the small sound trust makes when it snaps. You have promised to be a climate where that sound is never necessary. To keep this promise, you hold yourself under the disciplines that look dull to those who have not known their miracles. Sleep that keeps your edges soft, work that keeps your charm unbribable, solitude that keeps your listening unsold, prayer that keeps your fire under oath to something higher than appetite. These disciplines write their quiet signatures on your outline. Signatures are what bodies read when language is late to class. Walls are rarely proud of themselves. They were built by necessity, not love. They long to be retired by hands that do not worship their architecture and do not mock their labor. Your hands are such hands. You approach a barricade as a craftsman approaches a room that was built in a hurry. You trace the load-bearing beams, you mark where light wants to fall, you listen for the complaint of a hinge that has been asked to hold too much. You do not kick, you unscrew. You do not accuse, you adjust. When a panel comes away, you do not wave it as a trophy. You lay it gently as if it had a story, and that story deserved a chair. In such repairs, the building remembers it was meant for windows. Daylight enters and suddenly everything looks like it belongs. The miracle, when it comes, is ordinary to the point of reverence. There is no trumpet, only breath. There is no conquest, only welcome. There is no parade, only a woman who once had to live like a fortress, now standing in a doorway she chose, looking at a horizon she trusts, holding the hand of a man whose wanting is finally safe enough to lean on without bargaining any part of herself away. You have not knocked her walls down. You have made them irrelevant. Purity has done what force never could. It has made defense lose its job description. In that unemployment, love finds employment worthy of both your names. Chosen one, begin with the simplest truth. Seeing is touching at a distance. Most walls were raised not against bodies but against eyes that arrived as thieves. People think hands are the culprits, yet it is the gaze that most often steals. The gaze that takes ownership of what it notices, that requisitions a person into a project, that turns presence into proof. Your eyes have retired from theft. They have learned the high art of witness. Witness does not confiscate. Witness consecrates. When you look at her, you do not cast a net. You open a window. Windows do not trap light. They let it pass clean through. Sovereignty is the first promise your gaze must keep. It must say, with the certainty of tide, that the person before you remains their own even while being beheld. You do not shrink the scene to make room for your hunger. You widen the frame to make room for her life. In widened frames, people breathe differently. They stop standing on tiptoe to keep themselves in view. They stop holding their stomachs in to please angles. They stop rehearsing a smaller version of the truth that might be easier to applaud. Your eyes make this unshrinking possible because they carry no ledger. Ledgers make accountants of lovers. Your gaze refuses to budget affection like currency. It returns value to the body merely for existing. There is a way of looking that interrogates. There is a way that invites. The interrogating look demands evidence and punishes ambiguity. The inviting look offers patience and honors complexity. You've practiced the second until it has become reflex. When her story arrives without linearity, you do not flatten it to make a neat headline for your comfort. You follow it the way a river is followed, by listening for current beneath surface shine, by respecting eddies, by observing where banks widen and where they narrow. Rivers widen in the presence of trust. Your eyes do not rush to the mouth of the story. They savor the meadow. Savoring is not delay, it is devotion. Your gaze respects boundaries without needing them labeled. The body broadcasts where the sacred begins, and your attention has tuned itself to those frequencies. If a word is held with both hands, your eyes step back to give it the space it asks for. If a laugh arrives too loud for its meaning, your eyes hold a steady light until the laughter remembers its size. If a silence hovers, your eyes become a porch where that silence may rest without being interrogated. In such a field, autonomy remains intact. Walls were built to defend autonomy. They crumble when autonomy is no longer under siege. Desire stands upright behind your looking. It does not slouch into suggestion. It does not crouch into manipulation. It stands like a lantern on a post, visible, contained, useful. Lantern light is honest about its edges. It does not pretend to be the moon. When your wanting is this legible, her nervous system does not have to work overtime translating mixed messages into safety plans. The savings return to her face as color and to her spine as ease. Ease, seen from across a room, looks like beauty. Many will credit you for this beauty. You will know better. Your gaze only removed the tax. Sovereign seeing is also fluent in goodbye. Attention that cannot end gently becomes a leash. You have learned to close your eyes like a blessing rather than a door. You let the moment know, we were seen, and it was good. No performance is required to justify the time that just passed. Memory is free to carry what it loved without needing to invent drama to keep itself interesting. Next meetings are born in such endings. Future and past shake hands without supervision. Walls which rely on unfinished business for their nutrition go hungry. You have disciplined the theater out of your empathy. Performance often substitutes for presence when presence is unpracticed. Your eyes have practiced enough that they do not need costumes. They can hold tears without announcing a campaign to end all sadness. They can hold joy without campaigning for more until the person laughs themselves thin. They can hold anger without flinching or retaliating with an equal and opposite spectacle. In this untheatrical steadiness, a woman may test the outlines of her own feeling against your attention and find that she is still sovereign afterward. Testing is how trust graduates. Your gaze is transparent about intent. Mystery has its uses, but mystery cannot be a hiding place for motives. You let your eyes tell the same story your mouth will tell later, so that the whole person receives one message. Consistency is a kind of shelter. It removes the need for the mind to translate for the heart, or the heart to negotiate with the gut. When translation and negotiation retire, softness clocks in. Softness is not weakness. It is what strength looks like when it isn't busy defending its resume. Distance becomes part of your skill set. A sovereign gaze does not demand proximity to function. Across a table, your eyes return ownership to a hard truth that's been spoken. Across a room, they grant permission for a laugh to echo without apology. Across a threshold, they communicate that you will not turn the corridor into a market for validation. This ability to bless from afar proves that your care is not simply a function of what your hands can reach. Care that travels is care that lasts. Walls cannot keep it out or keep it in. They simply stop being the point. Repair has a visual language, and you have learned its alphabet. When you miss a cue, your eyes arrive with an apology before your words do, softening the surface so the sentence can land as medicine rather than impact. When you overstep, your eyes widen with accountability instead of narrowing with defense. When you must step back, your eyes keep warmth in them, so distance is not misread as disdain. Language that begins in the eyes is less likely to be countered by the body. The body trusts what it sees before it trusts what it hears. Trust is the solvent that loosens mortar between bricks. Finally, hold the paradox that makes sovereign sight holy. You look with reverence, and you let go with reverence. You bless the unrepeatable spark before you. You refuse to possess it. You honor how desire rises in you. You refuse to turn it into a coupon someone must redeem to stay valuable. You love what you see more than you love being the one who saw it first. In that posture, the architecture of defense becomes outdated. She can lean on the windowsill of your gaze without fearing a latch will lock. The sky waits beyond, and the air is right. She looks outward, then back at you, then outward again, and feels the rarest ease of all. To be seen without being owned, to be wanted without being used, to be near without being negotiated. This is how walls become scenery, and the heart becomes a country with open borders, guarded by wisdom rather than fear. In that country, your eyes are a lighthouse, pure flame held in glass, speaking safety to any shore that chooses to come into view. Chosen one, let your boundaries become the kind of architecture that makes beauty visible. A painting without a frame can be beautiful, but the frame teaches the eye where to rest and protects the edges from hands that do not mean harm, yet might still leave fingerprints. Your yes and your no are the frame. When you speak them, speak as a craftsman, measuring twice so you cut once, sanding what could splinter, sealing what could swell in weather. Boundaries like this do not shout, they hold. In their quiet strength, her guard recognizes a structure that will not collapse under feeling, and the wall that once defended the room learns it can retire to being a garden fence. Fear builds barricades when it has only ever met doors that slam. You do not slam, You hinge. Hinges are the humble miracle of relationship, those small hidden oaths that let a door open and close without bruising the doorway. You are careful with your hinges. Time named in advance, so hope doesn't have to guess, touch given only at the speed that keeps consent bright. Departures announced early enough that adjustment is not a panic. When the mechanics of closeness are this honest, she stops scanning for traps in the carpet. Her body, accustomed to rehearsing escape, sits down and remembers how to own a chair. Let your boundaries be riverbanks, not dams. A dam hoards, fearing the drought. Riverbanks guide, trusting the source. Your no should keep water from flooding fields that need to grow. Your yes should release enough current to keep the water sweet. You calibrate both by listening to reality rather than demanding that desire invent a different map. If the moment is narrow, you do not force it to be wide. If the season is wide, you let it be wide without calling spaciousness a sin. In this way, your restraint becomes nourishment. She learns that your strength does not measure itself by how much it can take, but by how much it can preserve. Boundaries are also music. A song without time falls apart, even if every note is perfect. You carry a rhythm that protects meaning. You do not rush to the chorus to prove there is one. You let the verse do its gentle work. You let silence end a phrase where silence belongs. When tempo is clean, the heart relaxes into the measure and stops counting in fear. She starts to sing. Walls are useless in the presence of a song that gives breath somewhere trustworthy to land. Speak your limits without apology and without theater. Apology disguised as kindness teaches the listener that your no is negotiable. Theater disguised as strength teaches that your no is a weapon. You choose a third way. You keep your voice at a human volume. You plant your words where they can be found later without a search party. You say what you will do and what you won't, and you keep that promise without punishing anyone for believing you. Consistency is the true charisma. It does not glitter, but it glows, and glow is what rooms remember when they are honest. Let your boundary keeping bless her sovereignty. The aim is not to make her smaller so you feel safe, but to make the space clearer so she feels free. You show her where the edges are, and then you guard those edges so she does not have to. Guarding is not policing, it is hospitality. Hospitality sets an extra plate so arrival isn't an interruption. Keeps the knives sharp so the meal can be made without injury. Wipes the counters when the night ends so tomorrow's breakfast isn't served with yesterday's mess. In such a house, vigilance has nothing to do, and walls grown tired from overwork finally take off their armor and hang it by the door. Remember that boundaries are a form of tenderness toward the future. Every yes you cannot keep steals from tomorrow. Every no you refuse to say hands your dignity to resentment to hold. You choose instead to purchase honesty with the small unease of the present so that the future can arrive solvent. Solvency is the rarest romance. Bills paid, air clear, energy free to be spent on delight instead of damage control. She feels this solvency before she names it. Her laughter drops a key lower. Her eyes stop searching for the scene change. Her breath moves the way rivers move when the bed is sure. When you err, repair quickly and plainly. Repair is the proof that boundaries are alive and not litigated monuments. If you overreached, retract without building a courtroom. If you withheld when you should have offered, step forward without making a parade out of correction. Specific adjustments teach the body that reality, not pride, governs here. Bodies trust what they can see altered for their good. As that trust accumulates, the old calculus of defense loses its numbers. Finally, let your boundaries be signed to reverence. Reverence remembers that people are more sacred than preferences, that consent is more sacred than momentum, that attention is more sacred than appetite. In reverence, lines are not drawn to keep love out, they are drawn to keep love true. True love does not require a moat, it requires riverbanks that let the current sing. When your boundaries sing, her walls do not need to hum louder to feel safe. They fall quiet, and then they fall open, and then they fall away. Chosen one, trust owns a clock older than your enthusiasm and wiser than your impatience. It grows like rings in a tree, slow, exact, recording seasons without ever needing to announce them. You cannot shout rings into being, you can only keep feeding the roots. Pace is how you feed them. Move at the speed of comprehension so meaning can keep its shape. Move at the speed of breath so bodies do not have to borrow oxygen from tomorrow to survive today. In such pacing, her guard loses its favorite argument, which is that you will make speed a substitute for safety. You have learned to resist both hurry and stall. Hurry runs red lights and then drafts apologies as if they were insurance. Stall erects bureaucracies to defend fear and calls it discernment. You choose the road where signals are obeyed, not worshipped, and where movement is steady enough that no one has to cling just to stay upright. This steadiness is not boredom. It is relief. Relief always looks like radiance because relaxation lets light take its rightful seat in the face. Listen for the metronome of breath. When you see it shorten, let your own lengthen until the room remembers the original tempo. When you hear it deepen, match it for a moment to say without saying, "We are safe to be human here." Do not treat silence as a void to be filled. Treat it as air that the sentence needs to stay alive. The older wounds in her carry a memory of being rushed to conclusions that comforted someone else's anxiety. You refuse to reenact that haste. You let questions grow their feet before you ask them to walk. You let answers take off their armor before you ask them to dance. Make your timing hospitable. Hospitality does not force arrival to become performance. It allows arrival to become presence. You begin gently, testing the grain of the moment, the way a craftsman runs a hand along wood before cutting. You pivot cleanly so no one gets whiplash when the topic turns. You end with enough air that gratitude can land and memory can carry it without strain. The hour learns that it will not be left to clean up after your intensity. Clean exits are the quiet arithmetic of trust. The next entrance does not have to pay a debt. Trust accrues interest in the after. After you speak, does the room feel larger? After you laugh, does anyone need to retrieve their dignity from the floor? After you touch, is there more breath available than before? After you say no, is respect still upright? These afters are your ledger. You keep it not to become anxious, but to remain accurate. Accuracy turns charm into character. Character is the currency walls cannot counterfeit. Practice punctuality of care. Not just showing up on the hour, but arriving inside a moment the moment it asks for you. There is a timely word that prevents a bruise, and a late word that must now apologize to pain. There is a timely silence that lets a revelation be born, and a late silence that sounds like punishment to a confession. You will not always get it right. No one does. The difference lives in your willingness to learn the rhythm of this particular heart, rather than forcing it to dance to a song you brought from another room. Let seasons mentor your speed. Spring does not rip fruit off trees to prove it knows how to harvest. Summer does not hoard shade just because it can. Autumn names gifts and lets them go without making grief perform gratitude. Winter teaches roots to deepen without spectacle. You move through these seasons in conversation, not conquest. If the hour is spring, you welcome beginnings without interrogating them for blueprints. If the hour is winter, you speak softly so roots can hear. She feels seen not as a calendar to be scheduled, but as a landscape to be lived with. Trust loves consistency more than crescendo. Crescendos impress, consistency heals. You choose meals you can cook on ordinary days, instead of feasts that require an audience to justify their ingredients. The small, repeated courtesies, naming time, honoring pace, returning attention after interruption, telling the truth before it is convenient, are how trust grows its rings. One day you will look back and find a wide trunk where a sapling stood, and you will be forgiven for thinking it happened all at once. It never does. It happens every time. Keep your desire braided to patience. Desire without patience becomes pressure. Patience without desire becomes distance. Braided, they become guidance. Guidance does not push, it aligns. Alignment is the frictionless condition in which two sovereigns can choose the same direction without needing to outshout each other's fears. You ask the hour what part of itself is ready to move, and you move only that part, only that distance. The intelligence of such restraint is the loudest love will ever need to be. Make room for repair in your tempo. When you step on a toe, do not pretend the dance is more important than the foot. Pause, acknowledge, reset the measure, invite the other to set the count in. This is not about guilt, it is about trust's heartbeat. It quickens when it knows injuries will not be minimized and will not be dramatized. It steadies when it knows the music will be there after the apology, and so will you. And as pace becomes prayer in your bones, remember why you keep it. Trust is not a technique. It is a home. You are building a pace that furnishes that home with enough air and enough chairs. Enough air so tenderness does not faint, enough chairs so truth does not have to stand at the edge waiting to be invited. In such a home, walls do not need to man the doors with suspicion. They become decor. History honored, labor respected, no longer necessary for daily survival. She looks around and realizes she is not bracing, she is living. You are not managing, you are loving. And time, which once felt like an enemy, begins to sound like a friend who knocks at a sensible hour and leaves before the room grows tired. Chosen one, make of your listening a home where truth can sit down without taking off its shoes. Let your attention be furniture that does not wobble, wood that has been planed smooth by many hours of care. Too often a person speaks and finds themselves itemized by the time they finish. Their story becomes currency, their confession becomes collateral. You will not run that economy. Your quiet asks for nothing back. You do not make deposits in order to withdraw devotion later. You hold the hour as a bowl holds water, no leaks, no dripping commentary, no fingerprints in the surface. In such containment, a nervous system unclenches. Words, long exiled to the edge, return to the center and test their voices at full humane volume. Let silence be your first language and make it literate. Silence can punish, yours will serve. It is not the cold hallway where someone waits to be judged, but the warm porch where breath remembers its rhythm. When she speaks, you do not load her phrases onto the dolly of your advice and wheel them into your conclusions. You walk alongside her sentences and keep pace with their honesty. If a word limps, you do not carry it like a trophy. You slow to a human stride. If a memory trembles, you do not strap it to a lesson. You steady the air until it can stand on its own feet. Your eyes remain unarmed. Your posture says, nothing you say will be used to buy my importance. Train your curiosity to kneel before reverence. Questions should not mine, they should map. When you ask, it is to make the terrain more navigable, not to claim it. You learn the difference between a question that expands the room and a question that tries to own it. Expansion sounds like, show me where it hurts and where it hopes. Ownership sounds like, prove to me that you deserve the care you're asking for. The first raises courage. The second raises walls. You choose courage every time, and courage, grateful to be believed without being edited, drops its stones in the grass. Remember that listening is touch at a distance. Keep it under the same vows you keep for your hands. Do not interrupt to rescue yourself from the discomfort of not being central. Do not summarize in order to domesticate what is still wild with truth. There is a cadence to disclosure that cannot be rushed without bruising it. Let the pauses be part of the message. Let laughter arrive where it wishes, even if it is louder than the culture allows. Let tears conduct their old electricity without flipping the breaker of your composure. She will learn by your steadiness that her weather can be weather here without being forecast into a fear. Guard the ethics of aftermath. After listening, do not turn the story into anecdote for the next room. You are not a courier for other people's intimacies. What was trusted to you becomes more valuable in your keeping because it is safer in your keeping. Safety has a flavor. It tastes like ordinary bread, nourishing, unadvertised, available when the hunger is humble. In this diet, vigilance loses its job. Walls that were fed by the fear of being misrepresented begin to starve, and the structure that replaces them is lighter, kinder, truer. If counsel is asked of you, offer it like a map, not a leash. Maps do not shove, they orient. They tell the truth about cliffs without despising the sea. They mark safe passes without promising perfect weather. You speak with verbs that carry, not adjectives that impress. Pause, rest, ask, protect, release. If the map is set aside, you do not sulk or sell it harder. You bow to sovereignty and tend the fire you can tend, your patience. Faithfulness to another's freedom is a rarer genius than brilliance, and infinitely more healing. Learn the grammar of the body. Shoulders confess before mouths do. A clenched jaw files a report more accurate than the most elegant paragraph. You read with humility. If breath shortens, you lengthen yours until the room borrows your rhythm. If eyes flicker toward the door of another subject, You open it without making her explain why she needs a different sky. If hands grip the edge of the chair at the word Father, or First, or Forgive, you lower your voice, not out of pity, but out of respect for altars you cannot see. Respect is the tool that never goes out of season. Repair quickly when you listen poorly. There will be hours when your eagerness steps on a sentence, when your memory misquotes, when your tone tightens where it should have softened. Do not erect a courtroom to defend the stumble. Acknowledge it at the altitude where dignity can breathe. I spoke too soon. I summarized what I should have held. I turned your story into proof. I'm sorry. Then return to the posture that serves. Corrected listening is stronger than uninterrupted competence because it proves that care, not pride, is in charge. Compliment in ways that do not harvest. Praise the courage that told the truth, not the spectacle of how beautifully it was told. Admire the boundary that protected a tender place, not the performance that entertained the room.